Now, seems that we are coming to the last chapter. Sakka-samyutta. This course is connected with Sakka. Sakka here is Sakka Deva Raja. Deva Raja means king of the Rajas, king of the Devas, king of the celestial beings. And Sakka Deva Raja resides in the Tavatimsa heaven, the heaven of the 33 gods. And that is the second heaven in the sensual desire realm. It's supposed to be a very happy place where the Devas and Devis enjoy great sensual pleasure. And they have this grove called the Nandana Grove where they enjoy themselves. So I start with the Dikta 11.3 at Savatthi. There the Blessed One addressed the monks thus, "Monks, Venerable Sir," those monks replied. The Blessed One said, "Monks, once in the past, the Devas and the Asuras were arrayed for battle." I stop here for a moment. Here, the Devas and the Asuras are arrayed for battle, ready to fight. This refers to the Devas and the Asuras who reside in the Tavatimsa heaven. Tavatimsa heaven, they have these Devas who come under the Sakka Deva Raja. And these Asuras, they come under Vepachitti. One of the main leaders of the Asuras is Vepachitti. And once a celestial year, they are sure to fight. That is the time when the coral flower tree in the Nandana Grove, once a year it blooms. And when it blooms for 3 or 4 months, the Devas will enjoy great sensual pleasure under this tree, because this tree is a very special tree, and the flower blooms. The smell, the fragrance is so nice, and it goes a long way. So these Devas and Asuras they are enemies, because these Asuras, even though they reside up in the heaven of the 33, they have some bad habits. They like to drink liquor, get drunk, they like to fight. So one day, it seems when they were quite drunk, Sakka Deva Raja and his Devas caught them and threw them down from the Tavatimsa heaven, and they fell into the great ocean in the heavens. So they reside in the oceans in the heavens. But once in a year, when they realize that it is time, the coral flower tree is blooming, they are annoyed. They are not enjoying themselves up there. They'll go up there and fight with Sakka Deva Raja. But this is not the only time they fight. Sometimes other occasions when they meet each other also they fight. So this story of the Devas fighting is not only in Buddhism, it's also in Christianity. But then the interpretation there is that Michael the Archangel drove Satan out of heaven. It's also in the Hindu stories, I think it's the Mahabharata or what, where these Devas fight. So the Buddha said, "Monks, once in the past, the Devas and the Asuras were arrayed for battle. Then Sakka Deva Raja addressed the Tavatimsa Devas thus, 'Dear sirs, when the Devas are engaged in battle, if fear or trepidation or terror should arise, on that occasion you should look up at the crest of my standard, my banner. For when you look up at the crest of my standard, whatever fear or trepidation or terror you may have will be abandoned.'" Let's stop here for a moment. Why they should have fear? Because they are going to war and they're going to kill each other. So all beings, as long as you have the ego, you fear for your life. And then he continued, "If you cannot look up at the crest of my standard, then you should look up at the crest of the Deva king, Pajapati's standard. For when you look up at the crest of his standard, whatever fear or trepidation or terror you may have will be abandoned. If you cannot look up at the crest of the Deva king, Pajapati's standard, then you should look up at the crest of the Deva king, Varuna's standard. If you cannot look up at the crest of the Deva king, Varuna's standard, then you should look up at the crest of the Deva king, Isana's standard. For when you look up at the crest of his standard, whatever fear or trepidation or terror you may have will be abandoned." Let's stop here for a moment. So here, Sakka-deva is telling all the devas that when they go into the battle and fight, then if they feel fear, look at his banner, his standard, and then they will get courage again. If they happen to be in a place where they cannot see Sakka-deva and his standard, look at some other taikor carrying the standard. All these are great fighters of the Deva world. Monks, for those who look up at the crest of the standard of Sakka-deva or of Pajapati Devaraja, or of Varuna Devaraja, or of Isana Devaraja, whatever fear or trepidation or terror they may have, may or may not be abandoned. For what reason? Because Sakka-deva is not devoid of lust, not devoid of hatred, not devoid of delusion. He can be timid, petrified, frightened, quick to flee. But monks, I say this, if you have gone to a forest or to the foot of a tree or to an empty hut, and fear or trepidation or terror should arise in you, on that occasion you should recollect me thus. The Blessed One is an Arahant, perfectly enlightened, accomplished in true knowledge and conduct, fortunate, knower of the world, unsurpassed leader of persons to be tamed, teacher of devas and humans, the enlightened one, the Blessed One. For when you recollect me, monks, whatever fear or trepidation or terror you may have will be abandoned. I'll stop here for a moment. So the Buddha says, if you have any fear, you think of the Deva Raja, it's not for sure that you will have confidence because Sakka-deva Raja himself or the other Deva Rajas, they still have greed, hatred and delusion. They are not enlightened yet. So because of that, they still have fear. But if you think of the Buddha, when you are frightened, then you will not have fear because the Buddha is one without any fear. The Buddha has no more fear, has no more ego. So here this chant in Pali is the one that we sometimes do. Itipiso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vija Charana Sampanno Sugato Lokavidu Anuttaro, etc. And the Buddha continued, if you cannot recollect me, then you should recollect the Dhamma thus. The Dhamma is well expounded by the Blessed One, directly visible, immediate, inviting one to come and see, applicable, to be personally experienced by the wise. For when you recollect the Dhamma, monks, whatever fear or trepidation or terror you may have will be abandoned. If you cannot recollect the Dhamma, then you should recollect the Sangha thus. The Sangha of the Blessed One's disciples is practicing the good way, practicing the straight way, practicing the true way, practicing the proper way. That is, the 4 pairs of persons, the 8 types of individuals. This Sangha of the Blessed One's disciples is worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of reverential salutation, the unsurpassed field of merit for the world. For when you recollect the Sangha, monks, whatever fear or trepidation or terror you may have will be abandoned. I'll stop here for a moment. So here the recollection of the Dhamma is the Pali chant we do. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditiko Akaliko Ehipasiko, etc. Then the third one, the recollection of the Sangha, is the Supatipanno Bhagavato Savakasango Ujupatipanno Bhagavato Savakasango, etc. And then the Buddha says, when you recollect the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, whatever fear or trepidation or terror you may have will be abandoned. For what reason? Because monks, the Tathagata, the Arahant, Sammasambuddha, is devoid of lust, devoid of hatred, devoid of delusion. He is brave, courageous, bold, ready to stand his place. This is what the Blessed One said. Having said this, the Fortunate One, the teacher, further said, in a forest, at the foot of a tree, or in an empty hut, monks, you should recollect the Buddha. No fear will then arise in you. But if you cannot recall the Buddha, best in the world, the bull of men. Then you should recall the Dhamma, emancipating, well expounded. But if you cannot recall the Dhamma, emancipating, well expounded, then you should recall the Sangha, the unsurpassed field of merit. For those who thus recall the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha amongst, no fear or trepidation will arise, nor any grisly terror. That's the end of the sutta. So here we receive this advice. Whenever we have any fear, we experience any fear, we just chant that Itipiso, Bhagava, Araham, etc. We keep chanting, and we don't think of the fear. Whenever fear arises, if we don't keep our mind occupied on something, then we start imagining all kinds of things, and the fear will keep rising. So one way is to distract ourselves by this chanting. Another way I found from experience is when the fear arises, you just watch the fear itself. Just watch the emotion. The emotion of fear will keep rising up to maximum. It will stay there for some time. You keep watching it. Because everything is impermanent. After some time, it will come down. Fear arises whenever we experience something that we cannot understand, that we have not experienced before. Last time I stayed in a cave, around midnight, I hear this scream, it sounds exactly like a ghost, a female ghost screaming in the middle of the night. All my hair will stand up. So this happened like sometimes once a week, sometimes twice a week, like that. So I thought it must have been a ghost, but because I was staying alone in that cave, I had nowhere else to go. I just watched my fear. And then it took me nearly 2 years before I realized that it was an animal, mosang, civet cat. The civet cat. This civet cat, it came because I was staying in this cave, which was surrounded by a lot of huge boulders, big rocks. And in between the rocks, you have a lot of snakes and you have a lot of rats. So the snakes all constantly come to my cave. I'm not particularly afraid of snakes. And because of the rats, this civet cat, this mosang, used to come. It wants to eat the rats. And that's its way of getting the rats to come out. He will make this call. It's like a taunting call, It's calling and taunting them. It's like even laughing like that, like a ghost laughing, So we humans, we are already so frightened. The rats are frightened out of their mind. So they panic, they run here and run there, and then this civet cat will pounce on them. So one night I happened to record that sound. Then one day one of our devotees came. He happens to be a person who has a fruit orchard. So when he heard this, I recognized it. He says it's a mosang. Okay, the next sutta is 11.4. At Savatthi, the Blessed One said this. Once in the past, monks, the Devas and Asuras were arrayed for battle. Then Vipachiti, Lord of the Asuras, addressed the Asuras thus. Dear sirs, in the impending battle between the Devas and the Asuras, if the Asuras win and the Devas are defeated, bind Sakka Devaraja by his 4 limbs and neck and bring him to me in the city of the Asuras. And Sakka Devaraja addressed the Tavatimsa Devas thus. Dear sirs, in the impending battle between the Devas and the Asuras, if the Devas win and the Asuras are defeated, bind Vipachiti, Lord of the Asuras, by his 4 limbs and neck, and bring him to me in the Sudhamma assembly hall. I'll stop here for a moment. So here, these Devas and the Asuras are about to fight. So the Asura king told his followers, if we win, you catch this Devaraja, Sakka Devaraja, tie him up by his 4 limbs and his neck and bring him to the hall, to the city of the Asuras. And similarly, Sakka Devaraja told his Devas, if we win and we catch this Vipachiti, you tie him by his 4 limbs and the neck and drag him to the Sudhamma assembly hall. In that battle, monks, the Devas won, and the Asuras were defeated. Then the Tavatimsa Devas bound Vepachiti by his 4 limbs and neck, and brought him to Sakka in the Sudhamma assembly hall. When Sakka was entering and leaving the Sudhamma assembly hall, Vepachiti, bound by his 4 limbs and neck, abused and reviled him with rude, harsh words. Then monks, Matali the charioteer, the driver, addressed Sakka-devaraja in verse. When face to face with Vepachiti, is it Magava, from fear or weakness, that you endure him so patiently, listening to his harsh words? Let's stop here for a moment. This Matali is the driver for Sakka-devaraja. Whenever Sakka-devaraja wants to go and look around, makan angin, this Matali will gather his horses, 1,000 white horses, and Matali will drive the chariot and bring Sakka-devaraja around. Now Sakka-devaraja has many names. One of them is Magava. So here Matali is asking him, is it because you fear him, you're frightened of him, that you tolerate his harsh words? And Sakka-devaraja said, it is neither through fear nor weakness that I am patient with Vepachiti. How can a wise person like me engage in combat with a fool? And Matali said, fools would vent their anger even more if one would keep them in check. If no one would keep them in check. Hence, with drastic punishment, the wise man should restrain the fool. And Sakka-devaraja said, I myself think this alone is the way to check the fool. When one knows one's foe is angry, one mindfully maintains one's peace. And Matali said, I see this fault, O Vasava. Vasava is another name of Sakka-devaraja. I see this fault, O Vasava, in practicing patient endurance. When the fool thinks of you thus, he endures me out of fear. The dolt will chase you even more, as a bull does one who flees. And Sakka said, let it be whether or not he thinks he endures me out of fear. Of goals that culminate in one's own good, none is found better than patience. When a person endowed with strength patiently endures a weakling, they call that the supreme patience. The weakling must be patient always. They call that strength no strength at all, the strength that is the strength of folly. But no one can reproach a person who is strong because of being guarded by Dhamma. One who repays an angry man with anger, thereby makes things worse for himself. Not repaying an angry man with anger, one wins a battle hard to win. He practices for the welfare of both, his own and the others. When knowing that his foe is angry, he mindfully maintains his peace. When he achieves the cure of both, his own and the others, the people who consider him a fool are unskilled in the Dhamma. Then the Buddha added, so monks, if Sakka-devaraja, subsisting on the fruit of his own merit, exercising supreme sovereignty and rulership over the Tavatimsa Devas, will be one who speaks in praise of patience and gentleness, then how much more would it be fitting for you who have gone forth in such a well-expounded Dhamma Vinaya to be patient and gentle. That's the end of the sutta. So the Buddha is saying, if Sakka-devaraja can be so patient and gentle, all the more so that a monk who is practicing this Dhamma Vinaya of the enlightened one, the Buddha, all the more so he should be patient and gentle. Later we will read how Sakka-devaraja became Sakka-devaraja. And one of the factors that help him to become Sakka-devaraja is this, that he never gets angry. It's very hard to do, not to get angry with a fool. I think I'll stop here for tonight. Any question? The one? Yeah. The four great heavenly kings. No, they are not a family. They are the four great heavenly kings. They are leaders of four different groups of devas. Are you talking about the 33 or the four? Four great kings. But here we are talking about Sakka, Deva, Raja, 33. Previous. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, four great heavenly kings, right? No, I mean the devas itself will have families, but the four great heavenly kings refer to four different types of different, north, south, east, west. Thirty-three devas. Yes, there is a second heaven. There is a second heaven. Yeah, Avatimsa heaven. So these 33, they could have been good friends in the past. They practiced together and they are born together. So they are like in Malaysia we have sultans. Sultans in every state. So in the same way, they have 33 of them. But just as we have the king, so they acknowledge Sakka Raja as the overall king. Yeah, all Devas, they have grades. They have a king. And then under the king, they will have smaller rulers. Now the Buddha says, every area we come to, we have a leader. You can call a Deva Raja. What we call like Dato Kong and all this. They are the king in that area, just like the village headman. Because they differ from each other. It's just like in a country, you may have two different races or three different races, and because of this difference, they don't agree with each other. This is because of our discriminating mind. So here the asuras and the devas that belong to Sakka Deva Raja, they look a bit different. Character is a bit different.
Just a human world.
Yeah.
And in the Deva world, they also like to listen to them.
Yeah.
Can they practice?
Generally, devas and devis, they cannot practice because it is so pleasurable in heaven. They don't see dukkha. Dukkha is the incentive for us to practice. If there is no dukkha, why should we practice? No, it's only.
Then why do they also interested in the Dhamma?
Because they are intelligent enough when they hear the Dhamma. They're intelligent enough to know that what the Buddha says is true. So the most they can do for most of them is just to listen to the Dhamma.
And get very happy.
No, if they understand, then they... So like Sakka Deva Raja is mentioned later, in the Digha Nikaya, that after he came to see the Buddha and asked the Buddha questions and the Buddha answered him, that he became a stream enterer. So because like for Devas, their mind is quite clear. So when they listen, they can understand more easily. The only thing is like in the Deva realm, there is no monks. There's no Sangha of monks, so there's no incentive to practice.
That means it's only in human realm that
Yes, we can practice. That's why it's mentioned in the suttas. The arahants are only found in the human realm. Could be that they did a lot of good deeds, because it's a low heaven. Not exactly that they don't have the right view, they must have had worldly right view, because there are two types of right view. One is worldly right view, one is Aryan right view. They may not have Aryan right view, but they may have worldly right view, because if you have worldly right view, then your karma is good, you don't harm others, then you can be reborn in heaven. If you don't even have worldly right view, you won't be doing good karma, you won't be reborn in heaven. Asura is better than a lot of other states of rebirth. They enjoy life. They don't really do evil deeds. Fighting is not evil deed. But it's like their lifestyle is like that. There is one interpretation. We also don't know exactly who is Ti Kong. There's a concept in Chinese concept. Because in Chinese culture, when you talk about Ti Kong, in Chinese culture we cannot explain the different levels of heaven. Unlike the Buddha can explain the different levels. He identify particular devas. So in Chinese, we just imagine there is some ruler there who rules over the earth and all that. We call him Ti Kong or Song Te or something like that. Sang Ti. We don't really know who it is. It's just a concept. Whereas the Buddha is different. The Buddha has seen, has talked to them. I'm sorry, of what? Suffering. You see, these devas, there are many levels of devas. So the lower levels, because especially in this sensual desire realm, all living beings are dominated by lust. You have male, you have female. So out of there, you have the sensual desire. Then when there is desire, there is jealousy. Then there is fighting. You see? But like the form realm, the jhana realms, they don't need outside things to make them happy. The mind itself makes them happy. So they don't have to do anything. They don't have to look for anything to be happy. They just abide in bliss. The happiness comes from within. Whereas for the sensual desire realm, they still want to look for outside things to satisfy their sensual desire. They want beautiful forms, they want beautiful music. That's why a lot of devas, sometimes you meet in the suttas, the devis make beautiful music, better than our Michael Jackson and all this. In fact, there's one sutta in the Digha Nikaya. When Sakka Raja wanted to meet the Buddha, he sent a young deva to go and introduce him first before he actually comes. So this young deva, he was in love with one devi, but the devi don't want him. So he came and played his music and sang to the Buddha and talk about his problem, how he loved this devi, that devi reject him and all these things. Then finally he introduced Sakka Raja. So Sakka Raja got to know the Buddha and meet the Buddha. And after finishing talking to the Buddha, Sakka Raja was so pleased. He asked the Devi to be his wife. that young Deva. So you see, they still have problems like in our human world, jealousy and love and all these things. So once you have this, you have that, then you have suffering. Okay, now we transfer marriage.